Go!
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Fun Friday Alumni Corner. Today, we will be having two of our alumni, the beautiful Sophie and handsome Andrew from Passion Republic, to share their journey into the game industry. So, without further ado, take it away, guys.
Hi, thank you, Ms. Ying, for your wonderful introduction. I appreciate being called beautiful. So anyway, I'm Sophie, and this is my senior and also colleague, Andrew. Whoa! Yeah, and we're going to be discussing our journey into the industry from student developer to industry professional.
Okay. Yep.
So, before anything else, let's see what the presentation flow is. Look at these existential questions that I've written up. Who are we? What we started with? What we did? What we're doing now? Senior to senior discussion. Passion Republic games, which is why a lot of you might be here. So we'll get to that at the end. And then also we'll do a little bit of a Q&A if any of the students have any questions that weren't answered through the presentation. So, Andrew, take it away.
Okay. So this is me. I am Andrew, and I am currently a programmer at Passion Republic. I am a game developer. I am a musician, and your best friend, probably. I don't know about that. We could be. So we want to talk a bit about like where each of us started. And so here's what I started with before I joined the game dev course at KDU. For those who don't know, I am one of your seniors. I was in the 2016 batch, January. Before that, though, I took my A levels, which just so happened to be like the worst 1.5 hour years of my life. Not hours. I wish it was an hour. But yeah, I went in and I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I decided, hey, I'll just take A levels. I took science subjects. I did like physics, math, and further math, and I ended with like 1B and 2Cs, or like 2Bs and 1C, one of those combinations. It wasn't very good considering the class I was in, and it wasn't really for me, and that kind of set me into a spiral of I don't know what I'm doing. After my A levels, I took a half year to work as a poster seller. I was working like retail in a poster shop in Wonotama, Curry Noodles Posters. I'm not sure if they still exist.
They don't. Now it's a shoe store.
Oh, now it's a shoe store, yeah. So yeah, but like during that time, I did some thinking. I got no A's for A levels. Like, so during this time, I did like some inward thinking and looking at myself and just like, what do I really want to do? Because like, I am not gonna be an engineer. That's just like not in the cards anymore. Then, as well as that, I was also like, I was also in a band. Still in a band actually. Yeah, we're still a band. This is gonna come into play like a bit later. Just there's some musical background here. Then past that, what else was I? What else did I start with? Oh, that's right. I knew absolutely nothing about game development. I think this is probably like relatable for the vast majority of people who joined the course. Like, you don't really know exactly what you're getting into, but you just feel like a tug. So this pathway, I'll be real, it's kind of misleading, but actually I had some inkling that I wanted to do game dev while I was in A levels. Just a bit of an inkling because I saw like the game dev kids. I did my A levels at KDU as well, DJ campus. I saw like the game dev kids at KDU DJ. I was just like, bro, like those people, they look like fulfilled and happy. Like, God, I wish that were me. But I had like, yeah. So it says should come for the foundation. I wish I'd gone for foundation. Funny thing, when I was registering for A levels, like the lady, like there was a brochure there for game dev, and my mom was like, "Hey, why don't you join game dev?" I was just like, "Haha, nah, that's never gonna happen." Jokes on her. All right. So we're also gonna talk a bit about like the projects that we worked on. So for me, we're talking about mostly group projects and like our takeaways for those. So the first group project I worked on, GPS 1, I worked on a game called Enchanter with Team Crazy Devils. Get it? It's a pun. Dev ills. Huh. The game, you play as a demon-slaying wizard who casts spells by typing. This was a typing game. You wanted to use like fireballs or stuns or like heals or stuff. Like you had to type the word in, they would be prompted, and then you fight bosses. It's like a boss fighting typing kind of game. And this team was composed of 4 programmers, 2 designers, and 1 artist. And yeah, my role on this was just gameplay programming. Most of what I did on this particular project was I worked on the typing mechanic. Basically anything that had to do with typing, like I was the one implementing it. So like, shoot fireball when you type it, and so on and so forth. Like pretty much, yeah, the typing.
The game is literally just like that's the game, right?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, this was a very fun project to work on, and these were my takeaways from it. All right, so sometimes the concept is just that good. Now, what I'm saying, I'm not gonna say like you have to have a good concept, but if you have like a good design base, or like you are one of the really lucky ones who manages to get a game that everybody's on board for and really like loves the design of, like that is basically just like game development on easy mode, right? Everybody is like in it, they want to make it work, and that's just like everybody's sold on the concept. This is rare. Like this actually, I say sometimes here because like most of the time, to be real with you, you're going to be working on projects that you are not completely sold on. There are going to be things that you don't quite like about it, but that's just, yeah, that's something you gotta, I don't want to say you gotta suck it up, but that's a reality that you have to understand going in, that a lot of the projects you work on aren't going to be like the dream game. In this case, this game was the dream game for all of us to work on. And my second takeaway from this is making friends is to your benefit. Wow, amazing in-depth life advice from Andrew today. But this game was like the point at which I realized that like these people I'd spent a year with, like sems 1 through 3, were people with like their own strengths and weaknesses. And being friends with these people beforehand, like coming into like this project, really helped to bolster like each other's strengths and helped to like smooth over any problems that we had in the process. In particular, I was very good friends with the artist in this group. His name's Sean. Sean, I met during entrepreneurship, actually. I met him in Sem 3. We hadn't talked at all before that, but we hit it off so well in Sem 3 because we got put in an entrepreneurship group. I like to call it the group from hell, because it was just the 2 of us carrying this entire project while like a few other people just kind of lazed about and didn't reply us on anything at all. So we actually became very good friends, and we moved into like this group together. Like we worked together really well. If he needed stuff implemented, like he always knew that he could just come and tell me. And if we had any problems, we could talk them out with each other. Yeah, this was Enchanter. In GPS 2.
Wait, before you go to GPS 2, I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so I raised my hand. See, okay.
Right.
My question is: you said that the concept is just that good. How did you manage to ideate the concept? Was it like your designer kind of threw it out there and everyone was like, "Yeah, this is cool," or did you all kind of mutually come together? Like, I have no idea.
Okay, so the brainstorming process for this particular game, I still remember. I think we were in the library, and then we were just like working as a group, just like coming up with different concepts and just trying to figure out what we wanted to do. I forget who suggested it initially. I think somebody suggested, what if we play like make like a boss fighting game? And somebody just kind of like, what would your character be? It's just like, oh, okay, maybe your character is a wizard. Okay, like your character is My dad just gave it up a note. He's making his exit now. All right, thanks, Dad.
First cameo.
Yeah. So yeah, it was like piece by piece, but we ideated it within one session. You remember in GPS 1, you have to pitch multiple projects. Everybody in the team, by the end of that brainstorming session, we knew that this was the game we wanted to work on, and like all the other pitches that we had, we didn't spend as much time on them. Like we we're all just like, okay, we want to make a typing game. None of us, we haven't even touched Unity before. And all the programmers are sitting and thinking to themselves, it's like, how on earth are we going to do typing? Like, we don't know. We're like, year 2, haven't touched Unity, and we're just like, no, let's just go for it. I would say the main typing concept probably came from the designer, and then the trappings of it probably from one of the programmers. We went with like an Arabian Nights kind of theming for it. Actually, wait, that might have just been the thing we're supposed to pitch on. Yeah, we're given topics, right? I forget. It's been a while.
Your batch had topics?
Yeah, I think GPS 1, you're given a bunch of prompts, right?
Yeah, but it's just that it's different. I'll talk about more mine later, but the way that they do it is different now.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah. Well, that was GPS 1.
That's what. So
GPS 2 worked on Spirital. This was with Team Asian. So this particular game, GPS 2, you have to develop for mobile. This was a 3D top-down puzzler. And essentially you play as the wandering spirit of a child pharaoh possessing creatures to solve puzzles. This team was composed of 3 programmers. Wait, was it 3? Oh, that might have been a typo. I think that was 4 programmers actually. 4 programmers, my bad. 2 designers and 2 artists. And my role on this project was lead programmer. Ooh. And this was the sem where I realized being a lead programmer is really not all that. I did not enjoy it one bit. I mean, so my takeaways from this particular project. So to start off, why would a ghost be trapped in a pyramid? This question was fielded to us when we were pitching the game by either, I think it was Buzz. I think when Buzz was still teaching, like he was the one who asked us, it's just like, why would a ghost be trapped in a pyramid? And that's such like an innocent question, but it's not something we'd even thought about, because as people like who play games, right, we take a lot of connections for granted without actually thinking it through. So we just assumed a ghost was trapped in a pyramid and needed to get out. And then Buzz was just like, if it's a ghost, can't it just like phase through the walls? Wouldn't like platforming elements not matter because it can just like float wherever it wants to? So then we were just like, we actually have to, we sat down, we talked about it some more, and then we developed like a narrative for it. And the idea being that the child pharaoh, the ghost, is stuck inside this pyramid, and it's kind of like a spiritual thing going off of Egyptian mythology, like, oh, the goddess Ma'at doesn't deem you worthy of passing to the afterlife, so you have to like go and do a bunch of puzzles as some sort of test. And I think that element kind of helped to solidify it a bit more. But I'd say this question like still sticks with me every time I'm trying to like bring up something. So I also do a bit of DMing, Dungeon Master, for a few groups of D&D players. And this is a question I ask myself all the time in terms of, I have to think to myself, does this make sense? Does this like follow through, or like does it stretch too much of somebody's like suspension of disbelief? Is it like actually having the ability to like critically think things through to what their logical conclusions of like the premise would be. My second takeaway during this particular project was that imposter syndrome is very real. And I'd say this is something which I never had to struggle with up until this point. In the game dev course, that is. In A-levels, I struggled with this all the time. But in this particular project, it really came home where I was just kind of like, oh, I'm the lead programmer, but I consistently feel like I'm not doing, or I'm not able to do enough like in the role, right? Like I was demoralized for basically like most of the project. But it was important not to let being demoralized get in the way of at least giving it the best try that I could. Because the problem with having like this feeling when you're working on a project is that it tends to isolate you quite a bit. You don't really want to open up or talk to like your teammates and tell them, hey, I don't feel like I'm actually like doing the right thing here. I'm consistently like doubting myself. I'm not really sure whether this was the right fit for me. So in terms of being like the lead on this project, I didn't actually ask to be lead programmer. It was kind of like put to a vote between the four of us, and then I think I got like the position unanimously. So starting off, I was kind of like, cool, you know, this I've always wanted to be, you know, like the guy in charge and being able to like, you know, be the one that's just like, okay, you work on this, you work on this. Okay, this is how we're gonna structure our code. I had like a code document which I was working on, like this is how we're gonna do it. But over time, seeing like what I was outputting versus what other people were outputting, or at least my perceived output versus what other people were outputting, really kind of shifted and took me to like a pretty bad place there. So if you're feeling this, my advice is your team members are there for a reason. This ties into like making friends with people around you. If you can trust people in your team, talk to them about it, tell them what you're feeling. If you don't feel like you can talk like that with somebody in your team, find somebody outside. You can talk to your lecturers. If you're in the working world, you can talk to like you can talk to management. You can talk to HR. But at least find some way of helping yourself through that. And number 3, sometimes you're not the right lead. I mean, this ties back into number 2. And here I say sometimes. Sometimes you're not the right lead. Because I would say that this very much depends on the team you're managing and the project itself, right? So of the 4 programmers, I would say all 4 of us have varying levels of like leadership qualities. Any one of us could have been like the lead on this project. And because of that, I feel like there's a tendency where each of us were fairly knowledgeable and fairly, what's the word? What's the best way to put this? They're fairly knowledgeable and very capable, and that capability can be tough as a lead to be like, oh, everybody around me knows, like really knows what they're doing. So like what position am I in to like direct these people? And as well as that, there's the personality aspect of it. My way of like leadership is generally very kind of soft-spoken, while other people, they know they're more like loud or forceful, and both ways valid in their own ways and get different results. But I would say that, yeah, sometimes you're not the right lead. In fact, I'd say like in this project, maybe we didn't really need a lead programmer, and we all would have just been happy enough just working with each other without one person to give the orders. Yeah. And I'd say like, yeah, sometimes you're not the right lead, but this is not necessarily a reflection of your own ability. Everybody's got different giftings and different things that they're good at doing. So this was GPS 2. I think during this time I was like more focused on my programming subjects than I would have been on like the group project as well. Maybe that had something to do with not getting as much done as I would have liked. Yeah. So then final group project, FYP. So final year project, I worked on a game called Wraith with team over perfect ratio. In this game, you play as a vengeful spirit possessing the bodies of your enemies to exact revenge. Huzzah! Yet another game with a possession mechanic. I think when we brought this one to Mr. Shen was again, guys, really. But yeah, I don't know. When we were talking about it as a team, we thought we want to get something like a bit darker, a bit more grim in terms of tone, and this is just
this
kind
was
of
like your Schneider project, right?
Is that what
like
project?
Schneider.
Yeah. This is like taking everything we've learned so far. We're gonna make a game which is the same thing we made last time, except better.
But it's edgy now. That's the difference.
Yeah, it's edgier. It's edgier. and everybody knows edgier equals better, right? I don't know. So this is team over perfect ratio. We had 3 programmers, 1 designer, and 3 artists. Initially, we had, I think it was 2 programmers, 3 artists, and 1 designer, and we were called perfect ratio. Then we added another programmer, and then now we were called over perfect ratio because we had gone over. On this particular project, I was a gameplay programmer, a composer, and a sound designer. And if I'm being honest, those second 2 roles were the majority of it. In terms of gameplay programming, I only worked on one particular thing here. And there was like one of the creatures mechanics. So you'd possess a creature, and then this particular creature had like a stealth mechanic. It could like teleport and like stealth kill things. But for the most part, I was working on composing music and designing sound. And I remember when we first started talking, we wanted to like work on this together. I kind of told the team, it's just like, hey, I'm really interested in the audio side of things. I feel like we don't get as much of a chance to do that stuff while we're studying or working on group projects. So I really want to like try this. And nice thing is everybody was like really supportive about it. I think a lot of the design was myself and the designer Wong. We would talk about like what the music should be like, what the sound design should be like. She would give me like the assets and that she needed and everything, and then I would make the sounds. When I say make the sounds, like, to be fair, most of like the sounds I made were taking sounds from other places and then like doing processing on them to change them, stretch them, make them fit like what we needed for the game. And then composition, which was a bit of out of left field for me, because up until this point, while I did have like a big interest in music, I still have a big interest in music. I had never actually sat down and properly composed something before. So it's just like personal challenge. You got to do this now because your grade depends on it. That's how we get progress here. It's just like force people to do things, otherwise they fail. Okay, so my takeaways from this project. So learn Unreal before you have to use it. This is to all the programmers out there. This is like FYP is a great opportunity to sit down and learn Unreal. I don't know whether it's still the case that this would be your first chance to do it, or whether you get to do it in like the programming classes before this. I don't know if that's changed. But when I was studying, like, we didn't get a chance to use Unreal, or there were like no classes you had to use it in. You could if you wanted to, but you weren't ever like, yeah, you gotta do it. So learn Unreal before you have to use it, because learning it on the spot while your grade is like hanging above your head can be rough. It can be quite rough. I didn't learn this lesson very well. Otherwise, I could have saved myself a lot of pain when I was taking the programming test to get into Passion Republic. So all I did in Unreal for Wraith was mostly like in blueprints and stuff. And when I applied to Passion Republic, I found out, they use C++ almost exclusively. So I got the programming test. I had to do the test over 2 weeks. And during that time, I could have saved myself a lot of pain if at some point I'd sat down and actually learned how to use Unreal C++. I don't know if the moral of this story follows through because I made it in anyway, but yeah, it's useful. A lot of companies nowadays are using Unreal, especially like the bigger ones or the more like medium-sized ones. It's good to have it in your toolkit, and it's good to have like the C++ in your toolkit as well. Okay, just because you don't know how to do something doesn't mean you shouldn't try. So I didn't know what on earth like composing or sound designing was going to look like, but I decided to take it as a challenge and give it a try. One thing to realize is that the Malaysian game industry is fairly young, and that you can use that to your advantage here. So you'll be like forgiven for gaps in knowledge as long as you strive to like fix those gaps. Most people would be like, okay, you're trying to do this, and even if you don't quite make it, people can still give you pointers. Okay, you can improve here, here, here. That's how like you learn skills and become a better developer. and a lot of game development is learning new skills and applying them to what you're doing at that current moment. Always, like, if you have the opportunity to learn something new, just do it. Like, it looks good on like your CV or like your portfolio if you can say like, I've also got this skill, I've also learned to do this. You might not necessarily be using that skill in your next place of work, but it's something else that you can show. And also, in tandem with like the game industry being a bit more forgiving, college work also acts as a safety net, right? So cross tight ropes in your work now while that net is there, so that you know your limits, right? Actually, like, stretch, try pushing around, try different things. If you fall, not so bad if you're still working as a student, right? At least you've learned something new about yourself. And then use your passion to fuel your work.
Passion.
Yeah, passion. I gotta get that branding in there. Not this talk not sponsored by certain person. I'm not gonna tell you that you will always be able to utilize your passions in a practical sense when it comes to work, but having interests and loves in your life that you can draw on to inspire and drive you is important. So like, not everybody is just like, oh, I've got this specific skill or something that I like doing. It's a hobby or it's a passion, something I really love. You're not necessarily going to be able to apply that to your work. But that stuff is what like gives you the energy to do the other stuff, which comes along with being a dev, right? Yeah. I was trying to think of a good example. Oh, actually, this kind of ties back into like Enchanter. So that game was like fulfilling to work on because we were passionate about the concept. This particular concept, the varying degrees of passion when working on Wraith, but I was passionate about the music composition or the audio side of things, and I could draw on that anytime I was feeling like I wasn't feeling too good about the project or anything. I was just kind of like, but I do enjoy what I'm doing. At the end of it, I came up with 2 different tracks for this game, which I still listen to sometimes. So just kind of like, damn, for a guy who like knew nothing about actually composing for a video game, these aren't bad, not bad. Not, you know, like A tier or like amazing, but fairly atmospheric, and I was fairly pleased with the end result. After I did my FYP, I went for my internship. Now, I'm gonna say here that I will omit the name of the company that I was interning at, so as not to accidentally spread misinformation, since I'm not really up to date at what's going on with this particular company. But while I was there, I was a junior gameplay programmer, and yeah, I ended my internship 1 month early due to the company shutting down. So instead of doing the full 3 months of internship, I only did 2, because one day the lead programmer comes up to me and he's just kind of like, hey Andrew, I've got some bad news for you. Everybody's being let go from the company, and this is the end. That was a lot to take in at like that particular time.
So like, you were sitting at your desk, and then your lead programmer's like, hey, we're gonna throw you into the void because we're all going there too. For real?
Yeah, kind of.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. So there was an option of staying on at the company and continuing work on what I was doing at the time, but there would be no pay essentially for like that remaining month or so. And I weighed up my options. I was kind of like, you know what? I think I'm okay with leaving now. So takeaways from this. So the industry is young. Not every company is secure, and this can be a very heartbreaking thing to experience firsthand. But if you can internalize this now, then this means that you don't hinge your sense of fulfillment on any one like company success. Because if you put like your hopes and your dreams into a particular company or somewhere you're working at, if it's in the game industry, there's a possibility that it's just not going to pan out for you, and that company is not going to succeed, and that can be very hard for you if you have attached your hopes and dreams to it. But I would say that this also means that there's always room for like new opportunities. When a company closes down, people are released back into the wild, essentially, where they settle into new projects or form their own teams. Now, of course, some people also leave the industry when this happens, which is very understandable. But the connections you make, anywhere you go, they are valuable. As well as that, like, there's still money in like that market, right? If a company fails to pick up that money, then other companies will arrive to like capitalize on it. So like there's always like movement going on with the companies and stuff. And because the industry is young, there are definitely going to be companies that aren't secure. So yeah. And just because your work never sees the light of day doesn't mean it can't be fulfilling. So I was working on something in particular for this company. I can't go into too much detail on it, but it was kind of an R&D, research and development type of thing. And it was a feature to work outside of their particular game. And so I wasn't working on the game itself. I was working on some like, it wasn't even game development, I would say. It was more like software development. It was just like completely separate, but it connected to the game in an interesting way. And that stuff will never see the light of day. But the work I did on it really taught me a lot. And it's work which I can sometimes look back or think back on and think just like, wow, I really learned a lot while I was there. And it was really a strengthening type of experience for me. And as you enter the industry, gaps in your knowledge will become extremely clear. Knowing where the gaps are is the first step to patching them over. When I was working on like this project with these people, I realized they wanted me to work on network related stuff for that app I was developing, which would connect up to like their game or whatnot. And I learned so much about network programming in those 2 months that I'll be honest, I'm probably didn't pay as much attention during network programming class as I should have. I don't think I got anywhere near I got decent marks for network programming, but I didn't really internalize like a lot of the concepts and whatnot. So I learned a lot about network programming there, and the lead programmer was very good about teaching me about different things. He taught me about different types of protocols and what are the difference between those internet protocols. He taught me like the basics of like socket programming and everything. I was just kind of like, whoa, that's like, this is wild stuff, man. I didn't know like you could do this in Unity. This is crazy. Also learned a lot more about like the mobile side of things because I was developing it for a phone and I needed to connect to like the camera, and then I needed to get like the camera data and everything. It was very interesting. It was and that taught me more gaps in my knowledge about just like how phones work even, and how to get like data from it that I need and everything. But yeah, so knowing where the gaps are is the first step to patching them over. And also, you only started making games 2 to 3 years ago. If you're a student, like right now, in general, some of you I know were like Wunder kids who were like in high school, you were making like little platformers and stuff. Not all of us are like you, okay? Like some of us actually like had started making games at like rock bottom, like Sem 1 onwards. It's like, whoa, this is all new to us. And if you only started making games like 2 to 3 years ago, you aren't exactly going to be an expert on your first trip out of university. And that's important to remember as well. So yeah, don't go out thinking about to yourself, I'm gonna make like the best thing ever, and like everybody's gonna respect me at my internship company. It's you still a wee little baby. Okay, after my internship is where I am now. I am at Passion Republic Games. So I am game programmer. I do gameplay programming. I do audio implementation, also audio management. So a lot of my role relies on being like the liaison between the sound designers. We outsource sound work to another studio. So I draw up like the asset lists and the asset sheets and stuff which I learned how to do during my FYP project. Gathering like references and stuff, and just having that constant back and forth. Anytime they give me new sounds, I put them into the game. I implement the stuff. That's me in general. I also do other gameplay related stuff. I do like environmental mechanics. I've not done any specific character work. And past that, I'm not sure how much more I can say without giving anything away. So I'll also do some tool development. So if the artists a couple of times have needed like tools like, oh, hey, Andrew, I need like this tool that will allow me to change how shadows work on certain buildings and stuff, then I'll make that tool for them in using combination of like blueprints and C++. That's been interesting as well. Yeah, that's kind of me. Oh, also getting into Passion Republic games. You know how I like dropped my internship company closed after like 2 months. If it hadn't closed, I don't think I'd probably be in Passion Republic games right now because yes, the month I had free, the first week I put together as much of my portfolio as I could. I went into Jingle Mingle the following week. My portfolio wasn't complete, so I didn't sign up for the portfolio review. Sometimes, companies come in, you get to sign up for this thing. I actually didn't sign up for that because I felt like my portfolio wasn't ready yet. I wanted to have it like done and finished before I showed it. And one of my friends, not programmer, he was also there, and he had signed up for the review. And he came to me and he was, Andrew, like, why don't you go and talk to Passion Republic? I was just like, my portfolio is not ready yet. Like, it's kind of getting there, but I think I'll just send in an application next week or something. And he's just like, no, come with me. And then like he took me over to them, and then like he basically like shoved me in there with a bunch of people who were like complete strangers to me. I walked in and they were just like, oh, we were actually just like about to go. Yeah, we still got time for one more. Okay, come in. And that's where I met like people who I talk to on like a daily basis now. But at the time it was just like so scary. But yeah, so if I hadn't lost that internship, I probably wouldn't have gone to Jingle Mingle that year. I wouldn't have had that time to develop my portfolio at all. I wouldn't have been able to make that initial connection with the people at Passion Republic. So I don't know what to take away from that in particular is. I would say
when one door closes, another one opens.
As cheesy, as corny as that sounds, yes, that could be that's a takeaway.
Yeah.
A lot of opportunities in the industry, and that's kind of me as to where I am now. I think now is when I shove it over to Sophie.
Hey, thank you, Andrew. It's really interesting because if you look at the dates specifically, like with Andrew's projects, basically like he's my senior by a couple of years. So some of the stuff, like not only were we in different streams, so we studied different things, but also like we had different versions of the curriculum to a degree. That's why I was asking questions about like, oh, did you have like topics for your GPS one and stuff? I'll go over it in a bit, but like it's interesting,
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is me. My name is Sophie. I'm a game developer. I'm the revolutionary game changer and the experimental idol. I also have sat down in a very fancy outfit to eat KFC and take photos of it at the park near Lake Club. Yeah, basically that's me. So yeah. Okay. So I have to start with pre-uni and this awful piece of concept art I did in a student edition version of Paint Tool Sci back in 2012. Artist, let me see you there. By Wacom Bamboo, they don't even make anymore. So the story goes that when I was in school, when I was in high school specifically, I wasn't a bad student, but I was definitely coasting. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and pretty much I felt like I was in the shadow of my other relatives, my siblings, my other family members. So I thought that I didn't verbalize it, but I really thought, oh, okay, I can just coast through school and I'll just kind of end up wherever I end up being. And I later learned that game development was viable after discovering the Ren'Py engine, and I started getting into visual novel creation back in the day. I feel like this ages me because this is like I was there when Ren'Py like came out first and foremost. And then in 2012, I was Form 4 was it? Yeah, I was like Form 4, and the IT club they had to make a game for this competition. It was an inter-school competition, and we didn't know what we were doing. Like we were told, okay, Game Maker has a free version. You get time to skip class, and I was like, okay, I'm in it because I get to skip class. You get time to skip class to go make this game for this competition, and I was super into it. And then eventually, one of the other guys on the team for this competition, his mom was like, I know somebody who's like a lecturer who teaches how to make games. You all want to go for like a talk. So I was like, okay. So me and all of these other boys piled into my mother's car. We all were, young and sweaty because there's no air conditioning at school. We piled into my mother's car and we ended up at the KDU DJ campus. And we got to go for this discussion in the old game lab, the one with the glass walls in the library at DJ campus, where I believe it was Buzz. If he remembers me, I'm mortified because this was me in Form 4. And he basically showed us like what the course was about and what game development actually is, and that kind of opened my third eye, and it super unlocked something within my brain. I was like, I'm gonna make games after this. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I know I want to make games. And this is 2012. It is now 2021, so it's been a journey. And anyway, so the group eventually dissolved after that talk because none of us had like the willingness to keep going on the project. After that talk, we all kind of lost steam for whatever reasons. But I kind of held on to wanting to do game development, and I really held on to that belief. And then SPM came the next year, and I failed my SPM, and I was not eligible to enter university. We're not even talking about entering KDU's game development program. We're not talking about like a diploma or degree or anything. I just couldn't enter university full stop. I did not have an SPM cert. It was the worst. I thought my life was over. I remember my best friend, she was like, it's okay, I didn't do that great either. I got a B. And I ran out of the campus, like my school campus, like crying. And I just jumped in my mom's car. And my mom, bless her soul, she's been very supportive of me this entire time. She was like, let's go to the school directly. Let's go to KDU directly and ask them what to do next. So we went, and I was advised to retake. So I kind of went silent for a couple of months. I retook some papers for SPM, and then I was able to enter KDU basically a couple of months after my friends had all entered. So it wasn't that big of a gap, thank goodness. But I will say that, being told it's like, you can't even coast your way into stuff anymore. Being told that like you're not even eligible to do it it scared me completely. It felt like I had no options left all of a sudden. And that really lit a fire underneath me. And well, now I'm basically overcompensating for my high school years with how much of a go-getter I am now. But we'll get around to that. But yeah, so this piece of concept art is kind of a relic because it was like the first time I was like, I'm gonna make a game and I'm gonna actually do it. So yeah, relic. So this is pre-uni. Let's talk about uni itself. Bam! Look at this. This is also a relic. So when I entered KDU, I was told, you still can't enter game development. I was like, are you kidding me? So they were like, yeah, you can't enter game development because first of all, it's a degree. So you need to do something before that. And I was like, okay, let me into the foundation. And they were like, your math is not good enough, so you still cannot enter. And I was like, are you kidding me? So the options were essentially to do like an A-levels, or I could do a diploma. And the available diplomas for me were I could do mass comm, which I didn't want to do because my sister was doing it, and I can't do anything my sister's doing, right? I have to be cool and edgy and different. So I had to take I chose to take entrepreneurial design, which shout out to SCCA, the communications school. It was a very new course at the time. Like I was I was part of the second graduating batch. By the time the course was finished, it was only me and I want to say 7 other students overall. And entrepreneurial design is number one, why I was exempt from taking entrepreneurship in my degree. But also,
Lucky.
all my classmates were suffering, and I was like, oh, I didn't have to do it. Yeah, anyway. So in entrepreneurial design, basically, we were taught graphic design skills and how to market it as a business. And not only as a business, it was like you were being put in the position of if you were part of a larger company, or if you were like it was just you were a freelancer. And I feel that was really good. I learned how to use the Adobe Suite. I learned how to become a better person because I was so strongly trying to be who I wasn't before. I made it a point to be kind of like the class monitor character in anything, and I was the one who sat in the front. I raised my hand. I would ask questions. I would go up to other people who I had never spoken to and ask them questions. Bear in mind, when I was in school, I had a teacher who did not know what my face looked like because I was always asleep in her class. So she was only familiar with the top of my head. So that's what we call character development. And I had a great program leader who's no longer at KDU at the moment, but she was a huge influence on me, and she was a person who was really in my corner, and I really appreciated it. And when I was also in ED, one of the biggest things that people would ask me is like, why are you here? And I'm like, I want to go into game development. And they're like, so why are you here? Just go into game development. I'm like, they won't let me, so I have to be here first. And when I finished the course, everybody kept saying, like, why are you doing game development? You can just go straight into the mass comm degree program. You could even skip 1 year. And I remember having this huge back and forth with my mom. But, we realized that my heart wasn't in it. I really wanted to do games. We had done all the research. I knew I wanted to do game dev specifically at KDU because at the time, there really weren't that many places that did game dev. It was like, yeah. So I knew I wanted to go here. Specifically, I wanted to do game design, and I was going to be like, cool. And, that subject. But anyway, yeah. So this is who I used to be. And these were the skills I had when I started out in game development itself. I still have those shoes, by the way. They're not comfortable at all. So also, just really quick, aside from doing entrepreneurial design, I also was the producer and the overall lead for KDU Campus Radio, the radio club, for I want to say like 4 or 5 years. I was there until 2018, so I was doing it even in my degree, and it took up a huge chunk of my life, but I wouldn't have traded it for anything. Because of radio, it also gave me a taste of project management and really learning how to run before you can do anything else. Because all of a sudden, I was like 18, and then I had all of these seniors from like the broadcasting school. And they were like, and I had to manage these people, and I had to learn how to use the console and all the software. I was like, it was a lot, but I got to do a lot of cool things. I got to meet Ben and Hafiz during the launch, which was in conjunction with Canon, hence the t-shirts. And then I also got to do a podcast with Petroscience. We called it Generation Future Ready. It's still available online, and I do recommend that you give a listen to it if you're interested in I guess like the tech industry in Malaysia. We also talked about sustainability and everything. I got to meet a lot of good people. That's what I'm saying. This also led to an internship at Fly FM, where I got to see Yuna in the flesh once.
Dang.
We breathed the same air. It was fantastic. And then I worked on some of the stuff for the breakfast show. Basically, it was cool. So now we can finally get into the game development part. So I finally made it into game development after 4 years of, yeah. And when I got into game dev, it was a huge shock for me because I was in this course, which was itty bitty, and it was all girls. And then I had to go into this significantly larger course, which was predominantly boys. This may not seem like a big deal, but I will emphasize in my course, I was the only female game designer, and there were only 3 game designers, including myself. In the course as a whole, at the end of it, there were only 2 girls. It was me and one other tech. Shout out to Felicia. And that was it. And it didn't necessarily make like a big difference. We weren't necessarily like shunned for it. One thing I will say that I am eternally grateful for is that when I was studying, I never got any kind of flack from a lecturer for being like a girl and also like a girl who liked to dress up. I never got any flack for it because that was one of the things that I was very worried about based on some of the horror stories that you'd see on the internet, especially on women in like IT industries, you know, that kind of thing. So I was very worried about it. I put up a large front, but it never really became an issue. And I was respected as a game designer the entire time I was in the program. I am very happy to say. I will say though that, you know, it is in credit to also my batch. My batch was pretty chill, all things considered. There was, you know, every batch has its own kind of drama. I'll get into mine in a bit, but like, you know, I didn't experience any kind of discrimination in relation to that, I will say, thankfully. So when we started doing GPS1, yeah, you know, it was a thing. It wasn't bad. I learned a lot about my teammates. I learned a lot about myself, but there were a lot of hard lessons that I feel that I could have avoided ultimately. So first of all, let's look at the game. The game is called Time for Dinner. It was built in Unity for PC. The team was 1 programmer, 1 designer, 2 artists. My role was the overall project lead and game designer. So the team's construction, I mean, the team's like how it was formed was very different initially because we actually had 2 programmers and we had 3 artists. So my initial thing was like, I don't know what anybody else can do, so I'm gonna put all the pressure on myself because that way then if anything happens, it's my fault and I can own up to it. So we had one artist who had just joined that semester and he was originally from TOA, and we instantly my team was like, oh, we got someone from TOA, we got this in the bag, you know, he knows how to do art, you know, so we're good. Yeah, you know, like, you know, we were really riding on that. And then after like the pitch, he left. He was like, I just realized I don't want to be here. So we were like, good luck, I guess. So now, you know, we've got the pitch that has been accepted, but the lead guy is gone. So there was that. And then later on in development, one of our programmers eventually left the group. He had like his own thing going on, so we had to continue development without him. And then also our 2 artists were coming from very different perspectives. So there were frequent discussions on the littlest things, which, you know, in retrospect, it's good that we were able to talk these things out, but it was a lot of discussions, I will say that. Overall, the game itself, it's available on the itch page. It's, what is it? Go to uowmgames.itch.io. Please check out Time for Dinner. It was the GPS1 game. We included like a gacha mechanic in it. We thought we were so cool. That basically broke the game. But there were a lot of takeaways from it. That's what I'll say. So my first takeaway is your entire game success shouldn't hinge on 1 or 2 geniuses. This is the TOA guy specifically. And also this is myself. When this game was pitched, along with the other 2, almost everything was like a point and click because I was like, I thought that this would be the easiest to do. And the lecturer's argument was that you won't learn anything necessarily, or like too much pressure will be on you as opposed to, you know, your teammates, or too much pressure will be on just your artist. So you really got to think it through on how you're going to work on this as a team. And I was not taking that into account. So, you know, please do not rest on geniuses. Everybody should be able to contribute equally, or at least you should be aware of everybody's weaknesses. This is something I'll get into later as well. Another point is to learn as much as you can, but do not force it. So I was super pumped to be finally making a game and be in game development. And I also had several friends who were in the course before this. They were my seniors, they were just like friends, they were people who were straight up in the industry as well. I was asking like friends of friends, I was asking like friends or relatives who were in the creative industry. And I was trying to find out as much as I could. And what I got was a mixed bag of stories. Famously, a senior who there was a senior who told me that the local games industry is not that great and I shouldn't really bother. And also, to be a good game developer, I don't need to be at KDU. And it's true. To be a good game developer, you don't have to go to school for it. But what happens is, what do you learn? How do you learn that? I knew personally that I needed the structure of school. So that is why I chose to go for the course. But to be immediately shut down like that and to be bombarded with stories of like, oh, you know, you're going to have a heck of a time when you reach this class, or like when you see this lecturer, make sure you're like XYZ, because if not, you're going to fail. And this is all I could think about. And I will say that it was to my detriment in the end. That's why with some of my juniors, when they ask me for questions, I ask me about certain classes, I always say, I'll tell you when you're about to take the class. I will not tell you like 2 semesters before that, because I don't want to put anybody else through the same thing. The imposter syndrome becomes very real, and like it's not great. And finally, do not be afraid of having opinions, but more importantly, on listening to others. I didn't know my team. We weren't friends. We were classmates, because I basically sectioned myself off to only talk to the designers, and there were only 2 of them. And the thing is, out of the 2 other designers, I only talked to one of them. Hi, Adam. I only talked to Adam for the most part of like the first year, and then like I couldn't really remember everybody's names as well. But I did set up the WhatsApp group for the batch, which was great. But anyway, like I didn't talk to people, so when I got to know these people, I had to try really hard to not immediately shoot down things, and I could see that they were trying hard not to shoot down me as well. So it was a really big learning experience, and this is something that I will say, especially working in a team, you can't genius your way through it. You're a team for a reason, So that's one of my biggest takeaways from GPS1. So let's move on to GPS2, After School Secret, which GPS2, Andrew, did you do GPS2 right after GPS1?
Yeah.
Did you experience
4 to 7.5? Yeah.
Did you experience like any feelings of burnout?
Heck yeah, I did.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. So
much
GPS, so much burnout. GPS2, After School Secret, made in 2019. It was made in Unity and it was for Android devices, so mobile. The team was 2 programmers, 1 designer, 3 artists. I served as project lead and game designer. So the game in question was actually, you can't really tell from the screenshots, but it was supposed to be a first-person puncher for mobile. It was an on-rails shooter, but without the shooting, but with like your fists, And we had this kind of like retro aesthetic and everything. One of the biggest problems was that my references that I was throwing out, only one other team member really understood. Because one of our other team members, he played exclusively, well, not exclusively, but predominantly like console games and like more newer gen console games, where I was like, I played Time Crisis 2 when I was 10. I want to play it based off that. High School of the Dead? Woo! Things like that. No, nobody understood. And after GPS1, I remember feeling so stifled, because in GPS1, it was like, I forgot to elaborate on this, but we were given an overall topic. And so all of our, and then there were like some other like themes and stuff to go under it, but we had an overall topic, and we had to make sure our pitch that kind of filled that topic. So our batch, we got Monty Python, and nobody else in my batch had seen anything from Monty Python. It was only me. So I had to put this huge essay. I did this long karangan in like the group chat, and I was like, okay, I recommend watching, what was it? Like, I recommend watching like the medieval one. And so for some reason, everybody, if you look at my batch's GPS1 games, everybody's GPS1 games were all medieval themed. We had like, was it King Arthur's Return and the Holy Book of Jokes? And then we had mine, which was Time for Dinner. But anyway, yeah. So I felt really stifled in GPS1. And in GPS2, I was like, I'm going to let loose. I'm going to be me. I did not do that, because I was like letting loose, but nobody understood what I was trying to say. So what my idea was, it wasn't translated well, and then it wasn't like, it took more time to get people to understand what I was trying to say, as opposed to making the thing. And then because everybody was coming from different reference points, everybody was in different points in their lives as well, I will say, some of us were full-time students, some of us also had a lot of other obligations on the side. We did come into some difficulty there, and I did honestly spend more time putting out fires as a project manager as opposed to being a game designer. And this was actually a critique that I got from one of the lecturers who was, there, where I was told that, you're putting out fires more and we are not grading you on that. So we need to see you as a game designer. And the thing is, this isn't wrong to say, this is completely valid. They are grading me as a game designer, but I was not showcasing the documentation. I was not showcasing the work put into it. They did not know how my mind was going to these things. They didn't see how I went from point A to point B. They just saw I had point A and it kind of just drifted to the side. It fully like Joy-Con drifted out of existence. They didn't know. And it was really hard. I was so burnt out during GPS2. It was the worst project semester for me. There's so many factors that went into it, but I hated it so much because I couldn't understand myself, why I was such a failure. in the end, when we managed to produce what we made during Jingle Mingle, one of the lecturers actually, after you played our game, he was like, "It's better than I thought." And I was like, "Oh, okay, good enough. Yeah, that's it." Like, he was like, "It's better than I thought it was gonna be." So I was like, "You know what, sir? Valid. Yeah." So we all passed. That was our bottom line, and we managed to, we're good. And yeah, but this is something like I would remake it someday, maybe, if I could. My biggest takeaways are to be experimental and have fun, but plan it as much as possible. When the game development process started, me and one of the programmers, we were like, let's do like cheesy voice acting since we're referencing that time period of game. Let's do this, let's do that, let's get this huge plot, and then let's make it like really corny. We didn't do any of it. We were we're gonna do 5 levels, and each level has like 3 stages. We're gonna do 2 bosses. We had 1 level, and I think you went through like 3 rooms. And we're like, oh, we're gonna have like swappable protagonist. No, we didn't do that. We didn't do that. We had 1 protagonist, the hands. Punch. That's it. Yeah. But you know what? Based on what I tried to do, and based on what my team could gather from what I tried to convey to them, I still think it was good. But it could have been better if I had just gotten my act together, I feel. I mean, like, one of the biggest things is I was so determined to make it set in like a Malaysian school. You can tell based on like the structure. But our art lead was an international student.
Oh no.
Yeah, exactly. And he was like, "What do you mean you guys don't have walls outside?" I was like, "We don't have walls outside." And he's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "We don't have walls outside." And then we didn't think anybody would notice. And then during one of the sessions, the weekly sessions, one of the lecturers was actually like, "So why does it not look like a Malaysian school if it's supposed to be a Malaysian school?" I know, so like, oh, we were called out. But yeah, so, be experimental and have fun, but plan to be experimental. Don't do it on the fly. Seriously, it's not worth it. You got 3 months to make it work. You're not going to make it work in that time. My other takeaway is to make an effort to understand each other, especially if you're working on a long-term project. I was unfortunately still in the mindset where I thought I was being understanding to other people, but I was not. I was getting mad that people weren't understanding me. Specifically, I was getting mad at the 3 mentors. Only one of the mentors for GPS 2 had seen me through GPS 1, so understandably, he was a lot more chill with me. He was a lot more relaxed because he kind of knew where I was coming from. And, it was easier to talk to him as well. But the other 2, they didn't know who I was. I was on like completely new ground. And because of that, both parties didn't know what expectations of each other were going to be. And that made things difficult because I was also eventually trying to people please, but they didn't want me to people please. It was this never ending cycle of agony. And then finally, people are human, not machines. I say this not only in reference to my team, but also to myself. I really punished myself at the end of the semester for not being as great because GPS 1 was not bad. GPS 2 was awful. The imposter syndrome was really strong because I kept thinking, like, this game is terrible because this is my idea. And even if the team chose it, like, out of the ideas I gave them, this was my idea and I couldn't make it work. And my confidence in being not only a designer, but a developer plummeted like crazy. I got physically ill. We'll put it like that. I got physically ill because I was like not great. I was just not feeling it. So bouncing back from this was difficult but doable. We did fortunately get 1 semester before we went straight into our RM and FYP. So I really needed to make use of that. I didn't really make use of that the best way I could, but I tried. So next we got FYP, my golden goose, Don't Stop the Party. Yeah, so Don't Stop the Party was basically, let's get into the game first. It is made in Unreal 4. It was made for PC. The team was 3 programmers, 2 artists, 2 designers. My role was to be the overall project lead. I also was the audio designer, motion graphics designer, narrative lead, and social media manager. I just say a producer and call it a day for the most part, because it's a lot of things to put in and put commas. So it's a bit different now, I think, for the current students, or at least upcoming batches. But in my time, you were working on your first half of your FYP during your RM semester, and your research methodology, the RM, would influence your final year project. So basically, you're doing your final thesis and whatever you do your thesis on has to connect back to your game in some way.
Yep.
And
Me as well.
oh, it's the same for you. Okay. I did something about how like the relationship between fandom and creator and its impact on a final product. I did something like that, but it was very pretentious. Yes, it was. So yeah, when I concepted Don't Stop the Party, I actually started planning for it during the semester after GPS2. So that means that I basically had like a month of pre-pro almost. And the story goes, the lore, the lore is that Don't Stop the Party started out as a epic about Hangtua and Hangjabat, which is still like my funniest story for everybody. Because it's like, how do you go from historical like Malaysian folklore to that? And
how do you go from historical Malaysian folklore to that? Please enlighten us.
yeah. Okay, so I have planned to do like this this game about where you play as Hangjabat and you're trying to find Hangtua, and then there's gonna be a big confrontation. And one of the big reasons why I changed it first and foremost was that I realized that I was kind of aimless with the idea. I just knew what I wanted the end result to be, but I didn't like pad it out. And I also wasn't making something that would showcase the talents of my team equally. Haha, character growth, right? So yeah, I realized that. And then the other thing was that my plan was our batch was not that big. At that point, I think we were like 18 to 20 people. So my thought was, hey, there's 3 designers that all specialize in different things. Let's just make one big game with the whole batch. And everybody was on board until, they decided this isn't a good idea. So, understandably so, everybody sort of broke off into their own thing. And so when I realized that my team just immediately went, so I had to work from the abilities of my teammates and then create a game from that. But I didn't even have a team at the time, so I started kind of like scouting people. I was kind of harassing my classmates. I was like, do you want to make a game with me for FYP? What's the game idea? What do you want to do? So that's how it started. Yeah, that's how it started.
Isn't that basically just like the business semester? Like the gap between GPS2 and FYP is everybody finding out what their teams for FYP are going to be.
A little bit, yeah. I just remember I was really proactive about it, and the lecturers were like, you're being really proactive about it. And I was like, I'm scared of failure. So yeah. So I got the team eventually, and the narrative changed so many times. After it shifted away from the Hangtua Hangjabat thing, it actually became heavily inspired by Soul Sacrifice Delta for the PS Vita and the Caligula effect for the PS4. And then also I was like, oh, I just played Fate Extella. I also want to include like elements of that. Oh, I just watched BoJack Horseman. Okay, I want to include elements of that. It was horrible. So I ended up discussing more with our art lead and also our tech lead, and they kind of helped to center me on like, okay, we could do this, because they were really just going along with whatever I was saying, and I was stringing everybody along. Like for a month of like pre-pro, just the narrative, I was stringing everybody along. It was horrendous. I feel so bad about it. But in the end, I kind of settled on this like persona-inspired fighter. And then I also really liked Power Stone at the time. So I was like, let's make Persona Power Stone. And that's how it stopped the party. And it's like, I don't even mean like the recent Personas. I haven't even played P5. I was talking about like Persona 2. I really liked Persona 2. Nobody else played Persona 2. So it's like that. So we made the game. We made a really fleshed out demo, I guess, during our RM semester. During Jingle Mingle, the one where we were on the TVs and stuff, like everybody was shocked that we were RM students. And I really was so excited that we had managed to shock everybody, because I felt personally like I was being underestimated my entire time in the previous semesters. I felt really angry at myself, and I felt like nobody knew what I could do, because I was being held to this standard of being like a game designer. But I wanted to be more than a game designer. I wanted to do the overall, that kind of thing. So this was finally my chance to be more than a game designer who I didn't even know what kind of game designer I was at that point. I didn't even know if I was a game designer full stop at that point. I just knew enough like, oh, I need to pass this class. So this was a really great opportunity for me to kind of show everybody, this is what I can do, and this is why you should appreciate what I can do. I was very spiteful. I kept thinking about that guy from the previous semesters who was like, the local game industry isn't much. Why are you trying so hard? And I wanted to show him this and be like, you know, eat it. Yeah. So eventually Don't Stop the Party continued development, and you know, we were fortunate enough that we managed to pull it off even during the pandemic. The second half of development happened, you know, when we were in full lockdown, so we were all remote. We've managed to win 3 awards, which is really great. We've gotten a lot of backing from the school, a lot of their support, my family as well. So like, yeah, and also with Don't Stop the Party, I was really experimental, but I planned for it because a lot of the outsourced stuff that we did, like I had prepared like an art book for the game. I commissioned a lot of my friends who are all local artists. I commissioned a member of the local game audio industry, well, 2 members of the local game audio industry to do like original tracks and everything. Like, it was a bit of a money sink, but I felt that it was worth it in the end. And it really did pay off, I feel. And also, my team and I, we understood each other, which was so important. I'm very glad to say that my team is not just my team, but they're also my friends. We still speak on a near frequent basis. We have plans to work together in the future, which I also really appreciate. We're very supportive of one another. It's basically what Andrew's point is from earlier, that these are going to be your friends, and being friends with your team really helps. So, you know, I'm very glad to see that I got to make this great game with my friends. I was also very adamant that we had to make a game that really left a mark on the local games industry, because this was going to be our calling card. So we had to be like, this is what we did for the last like 3 years. This is like the result of it. So please give us a job. Yeah, and then another infamous story is that I went to Level Up and I saw my seniors I went to my first Level Up. I wasn't able to go like previous years, but in 2019 I was a volunteer for Level Up, and I got to see my seniors, House of Ignatius and Echoes of You. They were representing KDU that time. And I was so amazed. Like, they got like this little booth and there was the poster. So I remember I went up to Rebecca and I actually said, you know, I really like what you've done. I hope you'll support me when I'm in your position next year. And then she was like, I'm looking forward to it. And I was like, yeah, you know. It was so anime when I think about it. It's like, oh my gosh, you know. I straight away was like, I'm gonna do it, you know. And then well, I did it, you know. We were at Level Up in the end. We won 2 awards from Level Up, which is great. And then, yeah, that was a huge moment for me as well. So my big takeaways from Don't Stop the Party: be stupid, but be smart about it. What I mean is to be experimental and to really do the weird stuff, you know, especially if you're in a position where you can do it, you're not limited as much. Understand what your boundaries are. That's the smart part about it. And be stupid, which is to work within those boundaries. One of the things that we learned during fundamentals of game design is learn what the rules are, establish clearly what the rules are, so that you can bend or break as you need be. And me knowing who I wanted to be in that moment and what we wanted to produce, it set the boundaries. I was able to really work with my team and say, you wanted to do this, so I'm making you do this so that you can do that. And then stuff like that, you know, like even during the presentation when we had to pitch it to the lecturers, it wasn't necessary, but I made everybody be like, what company do you want to work for? And everyone was like, I want to work for whoever will hire me. I was like, no, what do you like? So, you know, because when you say those kinds of things, then the lecturers will be like, oh, they want to work for, let's say, I have put Platinum Games. So they're like, oh, okay, so this person wants to make games that are like da-da-da-da-da. So, you know, set up those boundaries and work within them. That's like one of the best things that you can do. Make your presence known. Another way that I've described this is like have that clap clap and that flap flap. Because when I dress up typically to go out, I really like shoes that make noise. And I also like clothes that kind of go whoosh, because then that makes my presence known to people. That establishes who I am. And then it's easier for people to kind of size me up. so I can either work within what they think of me, or I can knock down those expectations and blow them all away. So anyway, another thing is to trust in your teammates and the process. I trusted my friends. A lot of these things, I kind of was like, I did it as a bit of a sandbox. I was like, I need a character that does XYZ. This is what I intend to do. So then we got things like concept art that, kind of worked within those boundaries I had set up. And then also with the game and everything. I will say, this is my entire team. This is our first time working with Unreal 4 completely. Like some of us kind of used it for level design, but aside from that, this is our first time like hardcore working with Unreal 4. And then the process also made us implement, what was it? We had to implement character AI within the last month of development. I think actually it's less than a month, maybe like 2 weeks, because our big presentation was going to be completely remote, and our game kind of hinged on being a couch co-op game. So I turned around to our tech lead and I was like, can you make AI? And he was like, I can try. And he didn't sleep for a couple of days, but we pulled it off and it looks good. So it served its purpose, that's great. Another takeaway is to be confident, but to also be humble and realize that self-depreciation is neither of those things. So, to be confident is like, I can do game design well. But then when you're humble, you're like, I don't do game design well, but I do game design. But when you self-depreciate, it's like, I'm not great at game design, but I'm doing it. And one of the biggest things is I only like within recent years came into the belief that if you keep talking yourself down, you will believe it eventually. You're not being humble. You are, you're making people think less of you on purpose. So
True. I agree.
yeah, right. If you're straight away gonna come in there and be like, I'm not great at video games, but you should hire me. So why should they hire you? If you're gonna talk yourself down immediately out the gate, their first impression of you is going to be, this person doesn't think much of themselves. It's not our job to boost them up. So you got to be confident in what you can do. I remember when I had interviewed some of the GPS 1, I think. Well, some of the GPS students during a previous showcase, I interviewed them, and there was a tech who he was like, you'll know when you see my work because it's that good. And I remember thinking, like, this guy's really confident, but it wasn't bad, like, yeah, it's a little bit like, woof, okay, at first, but it's not bad to be confident. But also, you remember to be humble. You shouldn't be stepping on other people. I think that's really important. Everything has to be like a balancing act, We are all queens. Yes. Yeah, okay. And then another thing is, do not fear ambition. Don't Stop the Party is an ambitious project for the FYP games at KDU, and it was done that way by design. I had actually gone through my seniors' FYP projects that were available on the itch page. So Andrew's was not there, so I was not able to go through it. But I actually had gone through my seniors' projects, and I had picked at them on why they felt like student games versus why they felt like indie games. And I really looked at why I would have enjoyed something and why I didn't. And I tried to take some points from that and put that into the game itself. One of the biggest things that we had done with Don't Stop the Party is that we will need people to look at this game as, this is a great attempt at an indie game first, as opposed to being like, yeah, it's great for a student game. Because there is unfortunately this kind of idea that, like, oh, if it's a student game, like, it's not that great. So we didn't want that, we didn't want to be with that stigma. Thankfully, this is changing. But also, like, if you were to put like a student game on Congregate that looked like a student game, the comments would be full of this kind of thing, that kind of thing. So do not fear ambition, but again, to go back, work within your own boundaries. And then finally, adjust the project scope to the people and not necessarily the other way around. So the mistake that I had done during GPS 1 and 2 was I kept on making a project and then, being like, oh, we'll make it work. Instead, with this one, I straight up asked everybody what they wanted to do, what they want to do in the industry, what they want to be known for. And then I also asked them, like, what do you consider like your strength and your weakness? And even if they couldn't fully tell me, I observed as much as I could. Like, I was aware that we had a programmer who was very invested in audio programming. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna set you aside on that. And then that was something that was in like his purview, I guess, you know? And then also we had 2 designers. There was me and there was another guy. So, you know, with him, I knew that he was good with gameplay. And I was understandably not good with gameplay level design at that time. I was like super narrative. So I was like, I'm gonna leave it to you, and I'll just yes, no, whatever you say, or ask questions if need be. So he got to really just like muck around with what he thought, and then we were able to have a dialogue based on that. So, you know, at the end of the day, like games are made by people, so you need to know what are the strengths and weaknesses of the people that are making the game. It will ultimately affect the game. Okay, so then I did my internship. I got to go to Kaigen Games. I reached out to one of the lecturers, Mr. Jeremy, and he took me on, and that was fantastic. And I was like, finally, I get to do narrative game design. Oh boy, I did narrative game design. So my role was to be a game design intern. And I was put specifically to work on additional content for existing IPs. I won't go too deep into it because, you know, NDA and all of that. But basically, I got to work on existing content I got to work on new content for existing IPs. So I already had like a bit of a baseline to work with, but I really had free reign. And Mr. Jeremy was very much like, or I guess in this case, because I wasn't calling him Mr. in the office, he was just straight up Jeremy, which is so strange for me. I was like, I have to drop the Mr. I was like, yeah. So Jeremy was like, oh, I'm not going to treat you like you're going to make coffee or whatever. Like, you work for the company and, you know, you're going to do what you want to do. So I was like, that's great. But my confidence as a game designer had not returned from after GPS2, even through Don't Stop the Party, because it was so collaborative and I just gave people like a sandbox and, you know, they did stuff and then I would yes or no it for a large part of the game's design. I really like, you know, and I remember I had spoken to Jeremy. I was like, you know, when it comes to the game design aspect, I have been consistently bogged down with the other stuff. And he said, I want to see what you can do when you're not bogged down by the other stuff. And the result, at least to myself, I felt like I wasn't doing as well as I could because I had no confidence, unfortunately. But I will say that the experience was extremely worthwhile. I learned a lot, especially about working at an indie studio. And, you know, it was great. I will say just that. Like, I didn't continue on at Kaigen for a reason. That's on me, why I didn't continue on, and I'll get into that in a bit. But anyway, my biggest takeaways from Kaigen Games is that all experiences are worth learning from, even the ones that were not so great. Because I was so harsh on myself for the majority of my internship, I found it hard to enjoy because I kept on beating myself up. But now I have a better understanding of my personal flow, like how I understand things, how I sort of get into new environments, how I am in a more professional environment. Because I have all of these experiences, it's definitely helped me out now. To students, your greatest skills at this point especially will be to listen, observe, apply, in that order. So while I was, you know, typing away at my laptop, I also got a chance to listen out and to look around the office and see how a studio was being run. At this point, I had already established that my ultimate goal is to start my own studio at the end of the day. I really want to do that in some years. But now I get to see it, like I get to see how the day-to-day is. And then you listen, like just keep your ear open. You observe how people are acting, how things are done, you know, what the feel is like, you know, and then you figure out how to apply that into your own work, you know? Like what I had learned is like, oh, this is how, if you're making a game like XYZ, this is how you'd want to do it, how you'd want to structure it, how that needs to be done, basically, so that you can create the best possible thing. So listen, observe, apply. This can also go for in your classrooms, like, and in your class projects. Just like see how things are done. Really, just like listen to other people. Huge thing. Also, like ask your lecturers about their game developer experiences as well. See what you can kind of learn from their experiences too. Because
you get so many good stories that way.
Listen to Mr. Michael. Listen to Mr. Michael. He has like long tangents that are great, you know. I can remember that during like game QA. Yeah. So, and then also another takeaway is just because you are a student does not mean that you are lesser than. I don't know if it's just like ingrained into the bulk of us, but as students, we kind of kowtow too much to other developers. And especially when you're in that internship space, it's still not something you should be doing. You're on equal footing. You're a developer now. Yeah, you're doing an internship, but it doesn't mean that you're lesser than the developers that you're speaking to. They may have more experience, they may have more skills, but experiences can be had and skills can be learned. What you have on you is your attitude, and your attitude should be that you are not lesser than, you are all equals, and you are working together to make something great. Or you know what? You should go to, once we have like physical events again, especially, one of the best things I can tell you to do is attend things like Wig Out, attend things like Game Dev Hangout. When I got to go to Game Dev Hangout and I got to meet all sorts of people, I met other game development students who were doing like other things. And then I also got to see like different processes and stuff. It was really great. So remember that part. And then also people make the project more than anything else. You know the people you're working with, figure out your fit, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Now, okay, here's my picture of Eric that I talked about to my friends earlier. So now I'm at Passion Republic Games. Yeah. So here's the story, right? Passion Republic, I didn't pay that much attention to them as a company until my art lead Eric was like, hey, we're making Arena Fighter, this company is making an Arena Fighter too. And I was like, what? Like, we already had done like the pitch and it was everything like that. I remember somebody had actually said, oh, so you've got like the mechanics of Giga Bash, but then the color palette are No Straight Roads. And I was like, I guess. Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. I did it. Fusion, how? Yeah. So I first got to play Giga Bash at Level Up 2019. And that's why it was such a big deal. I was a volunteer, and opposite the booth that I was watching over with some of my friends, was the Giga Bash booth. And there was a person who now I know is Mel, who's my lead, who is like, hey, come play the game, come try out. And I was like, no, it's okay. I'm like a volunteer. And he was like, no, just try out, And I was like, no, I'm embarrassed. And he was like, just try it out. So I was like, oh, okay. So I tried with the other volunteers who were also my friends, Eric and Crystal, and I immediately latched onto Wooly because I realized I could cheese Wooly's mechanics really well, and I was like, this is great, I had a lot of fun, and then I made it a point to also play the game during Level Up Play, and then I took a picture with the sword and stuff. My friend Crystal, she did a split. It was pretty cool. I bought the t-shirt. I still have it in the plastic. I'm too scared to take it out. I also have the pins. So I'll Wooly because I really like Wooly. And that was the thing. I was like, I'm going to work at a game company. I never thought it'd be this one. Right? So when I was... Okay, so I have to backtrack a little bit. When you look at my flow of things, I managed to get my internship almost immediately after finishing Don't Stop the Party. Like, April, we wrapped up Don't Stop the Party. By like May, I was interning already. So what this looks like is maybe it's luck. It's not. I was working really hard and sending out emails and really looking out and reaching out to people as much as possible to try and land my internship, and I managed to land at Kaigen. And the thing is like, okay, so at Kaigen, I finished up my internship in May, June, July. I finished it in July. And then I managed to get my interview for Passion really close after the fact. I think it was like, no, I did my internship. It was basically in the middle of last year. But essentially, my timeline was within a month of graduation, I had landed a job, essentially. The onboarding period took a while, but on paper, I had landed a job within a month of graduation. Why? Because I was already applying before my internship ended. Because I could see that I was not going to make it in Kaigen because I was so hard on myself. As a game designer, I had no confidence, so I decided that I was having more fun being a project coordinator back on Don't Stop the Party, and I really wanted to do that. So I started applying to all the big companies, and I really, really tried. I got a lot of rejections, but I actually got the callback basically from PRG, and I didn't think I'd get it at all. I did. And then during the interview as well, I kept talking about Giga Bash, and then now they're my colleagues. They were like, "Oh, you might not work on Giga Bash. Like, we do outsource work for you." And I was like, well, if I can't provide creative input, I'll have creative solutions to project management. well, I got the job. So I wasn't lying, but I mean, that's what it was. So yeah, anyways, basically me at Passion Republic is like ascended fangirl, I will say. Because like, you know, and then I got to the office and then one of the guys was like, I think I remember you with the sword. And I'm like, please don't remember me with the sword. So yeah, my takeaways from landing a job at PRG is to understand your own personal flow as fast as you can. I figured out really quickly after my internship that basically over a 3-month period, I will spend the first month learning the ropes, second month hitting my lowest low, and then my third month is when I stabilize. And sure enough, during my probation at PRG, I did similar. I will feel that during my second month, I wasn't as on the ball as I could have been. And, you know, I regret it. But I recognized that from myself, so I knew not to be too hard because I knew that there was a light at the end of the tunnel. Additionally, fit can sometimes be more important than skill. This plays into that whole genius thing. The team has been very accommodating. You know, I came in there fresh as can be. I was like, I don't know how things work. Yeah, and they were like, okay, you'll learn. So, and I did. You know, I had a great mentor who was very understanding, and we were able to converse quite easily. And also the other project managers and coordinators at Passion Republic, they've been very kind to me, consistently checking up on me. I also managed to make friends with some of the other teammates, the members of the marketing side. I would have lunch with them at the office at one point before I started doing work from home. So I really appreciate that, you know, I was able to find a fit. It was such a big deal, you know? And again, skill can be learned, and experiences can be had. And it's all about a leap of faith. I almost did not apply for Passion, like at all, because I was like, I'm not gonna get in. They make Gigabash. Where am I now, right? Yeah. So now we're gonna do our senior to senior part because I talked a lot. I'm so sorry. I want Andrew to talk too now.
Oh boy.
So during this part, basically senior to senior, because we're from different batches, we have different opinions on things. I think this is a great opportunity for us to kind of look back as alumni and see, like, you know, what's the differences in our thoughts. Because not only Andrew is a programmer, I'm a designer, Andrew's a musician, I came from a graphic design background, you know, like we got other, you know, our opinions. So senior to senior, Andrew, was there a belief that you had about the games industry as a student that has changed?
Well, okay, before I answer that, just want to make clear, in the picture on the left, I'm the one in the middle with the bad haircut. That hasn't changed, but you know, yeah, okay. The one on my left is Jack. Jack is the one who actually got me into the company. Jack also works with me. He's my colleague now. So was there a belief I had about the game industry as a student that has changed? I would say much like Sophie, I was also told by several people within the course and like outside of the course who are very dismissive towards the game industry. And just like doing the course, so much of like my thought process is when I graduate, I'm probably going to be working in like a small, like nowhere kind of capacity. And the impression was all companies in Malaysia are kind of like nowhere type deals. But like since I've graduated, I think I've gotten a bit more perspective, and I really understand that all these companies that make up the Malaysian industry, they are significant in some capacity. Like I scroll through like the Play Store and I can see games made by like Malaysian developers, people like Kaigen, people like Reggie. You've got companies like Metronomic, you've got companies like Streamline. You got big companies, you got small companies, you got medium-sized companies, and they all actually are doing good work. I think that's very important to learn. Otherwise, you're always looking down on your own industry, and that's not really a great headspace to be in as a student. Yeah, I'd say that's it for me in terms of what changed. I really have a better.
We did that game in fundamentals of game development where you know, everybody gets shuffled around like in 10 years you're gonna leave the industry, 10 years you're gonna be in a AAA, that one. So based off that, especially, and also on our own, I think, prejudice, a lot of us kind of thought we're not gonna make it in the local games industry, so we're gonna go to Singapore because that's where it's at, you know, close enough. We're gonna go to Singapore, we're gonna go to Indonesia. I'm gonna go and make it big in America, stuff like that. And we really downplayed the skill, the power of the local games industry. And that steadily changed throughout my time in the course as well. And I've come to believe, well, not really believe, I've come to appreciate the local games industry and how it is steadily growing. And I think that not only is it important as a student to be in the headspace of like this industry that I'm about to enter is good, and I'm excited to be a part of it. I think that's a big part of it. But also like you should also be looking to how you can help to further it, how you can help to improve it. Even if you're somebody who's not going to be in the industry anymore, like in the same way that you started out with, like let's say like me, I started as a game designer. Now I'm a project coordinator. I still kind of keep an eye on like how designers are treated, how design jobs are in Malaysia. I'm still trying to keep my finger on the pulse because I want to be able to see like if and when I'm in the position that I can hire these designers, how can I make it a good experience for them as well? I think that's very important,
Yeah, I think this similar to this because that's also something that a lot of people in the music scene, or at least like the local indie type music scene, feel. And there, the pervasive attitude is nobody wants to go to shows, nobody's supporting us. Like this industry is like really like nowhere. You gotta go make it somewhere else. And like I always think to myself, it's just like, okay, so if the industry is not looking so good, like what are you gonna do about it, right? How are you going to push it or help to expand it and make it better? There are definitely people in like the local music scene who try and actually make it a better space for people. And these are the people, like they'll probably not be remembered, but they're the ones that like this entire that industry will stand on. So similar to here, like you might think to yourself, oh, I have to work at Blizzard, I need to work at like I want to say EA, but I'm not sure how many people would say that. But I need to work at like Ubisoft or something to actually be a great game developer. It's just like that's not really it. Making an impact in like your local industry, that's really how like you can enact change for like your own space.
No, I completely agree. Like the change starts here. Yeah. Okay, my next senior to senior question to Andrew. Is there a lesson that you could have only learned from industry experience as opposed to being a student? Also, what you see here is our board games, right?
Oh,
This
for
is your
sure.
board game, right?
Ooh,
Yeah.
Blast from the Past.
Yeah, the special
Sem 1 board
ability
game.
die. Yeah, we had to make a board game in Sem 1 for each of us, yeah. But like, is there a lesson that you've learned only now being a industry professional as opposed to being a student developer?
Opposed to being a student. I'm trying to think of the lessons I've learned so far. If you've got an answer, you can go first. I'm
Okay.
still thinking.
Okay. Well, one of the biggest lessons is that you shouldn't be so hard on yourself. Like, it's kind of the games industry isn't easy. It's definitely not easy here as well. So you gotta really want it, but you shouldn't be so hard on yourself that you should only like eat, sleep, breathe games, because in the games industry people aren't like that. People have lives beyond just their work. It's okay to have hobbies outside of games. It's okay to like things that are not games, that kind of thing. I can say like during my time in game development, I didn't play a non-mobile gacha game until my final couple semesters. Then I bought a Switch and I bought Smash under the premise of I need this for research for my game. So yeah, but like in the games industry, people don't just eat, sleep, breathe games. And even if they do, it's not in like this hardcore way that you think. Like yeah, they're passionate about the game. Not passion. They're not passionate about the game and what they're making, but that's not their entire person. So I think that's a big lesson that everybody should really take into account, because as a student, you really get tunnel vision sometimes. Like I have to only read about, like EA if I want to learn how to be a game developer, because if not, like how will I become an EA game developer? Like no, it's more than that. That's a big lesson that I learned only like, now that I'm in the industry and I see people in the industry every day. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so for myself, I'd say like similar in the sense that, yeah, the industry experience, like as a student, a lot of the work you do is kind of haphazard. Like, oh, I'm gonna go to college. Okay, I go to uni. I come back home. I like mill around for a little bit. Then I hop on for like 2 to 3 hours, do some coding at like what odd hours, like 10 to 1 or something, and then that's it. I'm done. Tomorrow, I'm kind of not feeling it. I don't get a lot done. Maybe I work on it for 1 hour. Next day, I work on it. When you're actually like working in the industry, it really like hits you like, oh, this is like a 9 to 5 type deal. Like
It's a job.
it's a job. Whoa, that is. So you really learn how to separate the work from your personal life. When you're in uni or you're in college, it's a bit harder to do because like it's so fluid. Like everything kind of overlaps into each other. Your work is your personal life and stuff like that. But being inside the industry has really taught me like value the time you have outside of like work hours. You really like learn to make the most of it. It's just like, okay, I finish work at like this time. I've got this many hours before I go to bed. Okay, I'm gonna use this one's for dinner, this one's for like watching TV, and then like the rest I have to do something else which I'm interested or like. And I also learned how to just like take time for myself. I think most of the times I've taken annual leave in this company has been for my reason. They'll just be like rest. I'll just take like 1 or 2 days in a row. And just like, yeah, I just feel like next week I just need to take like 1 day to just like sit back and just like not do anything work related.
You just gotta exist.
Yeah, just gotta exist. Just do something you like doing. Recharge. So yeah, I'd say my lesson is learning your limits in terms of working and figuring out how to refuel anytime you're feeling tired or yeah.
I think that's good. Like establishing a work-life balance is something that I had to learn the hard way. So I wholeheartedly agree.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Senior to senior, in your opinion, what subject best prepared you for the industry? Ooh, spicy.
Oh, when we were discussing what questions to do, we thought like, this one, can be a bit contentious because, like some lecturers gonna be sweating like, oh, is my subject gonna be the one they say? Or
Yeah, let's put expectations on the lecturers. Let's do it.
okay, I'm gonna say like that picture I'm working that was during CSR, and CSR was definitely not the subject that best prepared me for the industry. getting that one out of the way. I personally, I would say it's one of two subjects. I would say either fundamentals of game development with Mr. Shen, or number two, business and marketing with Michael. I've told this to like a few of my classmates or other people who have studied during the game dev course. I said, I think honestly, business and marketing was my favorite class the entire time I was there, and I get like the most bug-eyed look ever. No, honestly, I would say it really. There was something about it that very much like turned something on in like this like monkey brain, and now I see everything like very differently. It really helps you to think through the business and marketing side of just like everything. You think about development less in terms of how amazing is this thing we're making and just like, okay, but how is it like a product like we can sell? What are like the references we're using for it? How can this thing be marketed? These are lessons which I've taken into like different areas of my life. Even just like, yeah, it's personally, I'd say business and marketing, just because it really helped me to understand the industry a lot better. Fundamentals of game dev, though, still really good. Sem 1, they hit you. They hit you good.
Yeah, like for me personally, it is also fundamentals of game development because you get the harsh realities. Like I still remember it's like, who wants to be a game programmer? okay, a lot of you, you can get jobs. Okay, who wants to be a game artist? Oh, a lot of you, okay, you can get job. Who wants to be a game designer? You know, it was so scary. I remember I came home and I was like, Mom, I'm not gonna get a job. And she's just like, then you have to work hard so that you can get the job. I believe in you. I'm like, my mom believes in me, but I'm scared. That was like basically it. And we have to like really figure out like ourselves. And true enough, after the first semester, a lot of students end up changing out of the course because they realize the game industry is not what they initially thought. Another subject though that did have a lot of impact on me is also fundamentals of game design. I still remember one of the first things that Mr. Michael had said was game design is creating the illusion of choice. And I was like, oh my God, game design is existential. And he was like, you know,
What is fun?
What is fun? What is define fun? That's like a question you get, like, you know, like define fun. And you're like, oh my God, you know? Yeah, it's the worst. You're like, what? Am I having fun? And then you have to like think, you know, it's like that. And then another thing that he had also said that still sticks with me is he asked a question and someone has said like, I don't know, maybe, and he just like stopped and he was like, learn how to not say maybe. And I was like, oh my goodness, because he was like, you know, as a developer, you're gonna have to make decisions, you're gonna have to make calls, and you're gonna have to be responsible if those calls are the right ones or the wrong ones, or even the ones that have no effect or no effect that you can see now. So learn to make decisions and own up to them. And that really stuck with me the entire time because, you know, that was the thing I used to harp on people about throughout GPS 1 and 2 as well. So like, yeah, those are the classes that prepared me the most.
I'd say like even now, working on Gigabash, I try as much as possible to avoid like we call it like hedging language. Don't say like maybe, probably, I think. I try to avoid it as much as possible if I can give like a straight answer. It's just like, Andrew, do you think we can put this in? I'll need to take a look at it, but I reckon yes. I think like, see, I've done it like twice right there already. I'll just say yes or no. It's just like, yep, can do. Nope, cannot do. Do not ask me for that.
Like, just be upfront about it, right? Because even I remember I was having a discussion with my mentor, you know, when I first started doing my probation, and she had asked me about a specific question. And instead of kind of being like, oh, I don't know, maybe blah, 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 I took a chance and I said, can I get back to you on this tomorrow or like in an hour? And then she was like, okay. And I did it and I was able to provide a proper response at the time that we allocated for it. So even as a student, do not be afraid to, you know, do that. Like, you know, if you have an opinion, stick to it. If you need to buy yourself more time, don't be like, I don't know, maybe, because it just makes you look wishy-washy. So that's something. Like, at the end of the day, when it comes to talking to your colleagues and lecturers and everything, what they're really looking for is viability as opposed to like anything else. So you got to be like, yes or no. Is it viable to do this? Yes or no. If it's a maybe, you know, I need to check. Don't be afraid to do that kind of thing.
But I'll get an answer for you within a certain time frame.
Very important, I feel, especially like if you're working. Yeah. Okay, so here's the thing that everybody's looking forward to, right? Where the journey led to working on Gigabash. These are some GIFs of the game that have been provided by the marketing side. You know, thank you so much, Rika and Crystal. We are currently part of the team that is working on Gigabash. This is Passion Republic Games' first original IP. It is a arena brawler featuring kaiju, and also it is it has lots of references and callbacks to like you know, the old Godzilla games, and also the what is it, like the, you know, all sorts of things during that time. Yep. Suddenly my words are failing me. I'm so sorry. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And the game, you know, we're all working really hard on it, and hope that everybody is looking forward to it. This is the thing, like, you know, when you're working as a student, when you are the student, right, you think, oh, I'm gonna be at a nowhere company, like what Andrew said. But if you work hard and you really like you learn and you take those leaps of faith, you can work on what is basically a AAA game at this point, you know. I think that's something that needs to be recognized. Like, it's not like a wonderkin kind of thing. Like, yeah, maybe this is kind of like you wouldn't see it as often, maybe, coming from the students. There's no shame in working for smaller studios, but working at bigger studios locally, on a grand scale is completely possible, and it's important to recognize that fact so that you can aspire towards it. You know, a lot of my batchmates have been like, oh, I'll work wherever they'll take me. So make sure that your work will be taken in by the big guys. Nothing wrong with that. I think it's important to be ambitious, temperate, but it's important to be ambitious as well.
But also just like a disclaimer to that, like yes, definitely the not just like the big guys not in terms of just like the studio size, but big guys as in like you also can be working on things which impact the industry, even if that's within like smaller teams or groups and stuff.
Like smaller teams impact the industry quite well. I mean, Kaigen Games is definitely one of those, and then also Kurechi, definitely. You know, when they got the Apple Arcade thing, right? That was a big deal.
Yep.
I remember, and also one of the designers is also one of our seniors. So there you go, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's many avenues for success in the industry, and if you put in like the work and you actually like, you definitely can also be working on things that impact the industry.
So I also wanted to showcase working on Gigabash, like, you know, this. Some people, too, unfortunately, they're like, oh, if I work on a game made in Malaysia, the caliber is not going to be that great. You know, we don't have the same facilities, the same utilities, the same anything that you know, they have over in Blizzard in America. Of course, you know, like that's not the case. You know, we have the same facilities and we have similar opportunities. It is harder ultimately, you know, because like the eyes are mostly stateside, the eyes are mostly on the Western world for game development. And if it's Asia, it's predominantly like Japan, right? Now, like if you want to talk about Southeast Asian game development, Indonesia's getting really big, and that's really great. So we shouldn't be downplaying like the abilities of what you can achieve here in Malaysia. So over here, you can see the concept art and modeling progress of the character Gorogong. This is one of the playable characters for Gigabash, who went through like a pretty, you know, extensive concept art phase. But in the end, like we had character who pretty great, you know, like I was not there for the concept art phase. I was not there for the modeling phase. I got to play the game with him in it. So like, you know, looking at the progress now, like as a student, I'm like, oh my God, you know, as an ex-student, I'm like, oh my God, this is what they used to do. And this is what it is now. We've done similar, you know, like that. It's that kind of feeling. And then, so, you know, this is motion capture, motion building, and animation for the character Garagong. You know, we do mocap in the office as well, which is a big deal because I remember I had spoken to somebody because in one of the subjects that we had done, it was brought up that Dreadout, the one survival horror game from Indonesia, right? They were able to do full mocap. I think it was with like a Kinect hooked up to a PC. So someone was like, oh, that's the only way we can do mocap in Malaysia because we don't have like the big, you know, like the studio. We have the big studio. So like,
yeah, and not just in game studios as well. There's also like just animation houses in Malaysia that have this technology.
Yeah, you know, our animation industry is also quite big. In general, our creative industry is actually very big. It's, you know, it's got fresh talent coming in all the time. It's growing. It's young. It's very young, but it's there. And the fact that there are some people that immediately will be like, I'm not gonna bother with it because I haven't heard of it now. I think that's a shame because they're just bothering not to look.
For sure. Yeah, there's also kind of so this morning there was like that news that broke of like, oh, you know, like the studios are outsourcing work to like Asia, and I saw some people commenting on the situation, and it's almost like they were despising the idea that, oh, because like our currency value isn't as high, you know, people are sending like their cheap labor here. There's that aspect to it, but there's also the aspect that work coming here means that like so many like world-class developers are being trained here, just like by virtue of receiving this type of clients and this kind of work from overseas. So yeah, like there's definitely a lot of world-class talent here in Malaysia as well, and they're all working in different places, and they're all like helping each other in the industry in their own way.
I mean, you know, we're in the industry. We're world-class talents now.
I, I don't give myself that label. There's one artist on the team who likes to say, yes, award-winning developer. That's me, because like we got this awards from like Level Up a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It's like, look at you owning it. Like, yeah.
Yeah. My
Yeah.
mom pointed out once that like, oh, Gigabash won the Audience Choice Award at the previous Level Up, and then you won the Audience Choice Award the next year. It's a perfect fit. And I'm like, Mom, I mean, you're right, but Mom, so we win awards here too. Right. So finally, especially we have some words from the founder and president of Passion Republic. Yeah, I got to. I asked her like, can you give some words of advice specifically, because in KDU the students don't really know Passion. It's like, we talk about the big studios, Streamlight, Sky, and then when it comes to Passion, it's like the students. I was like, oh, I heard is very like TOA centric, and then immediately it gets written off by like a lot of the students when that's not the case. So I asked her to give some words of advice about entering the industry. So I'm gonna hit play on this.
Ooh, Saitama gonna inspire me.
Yeah.
Hello everyone,
Yeah.
This is Cern from Passion Republic, and I hope everyone is doing all right, coping with the current situation and enjoying your game development journey. Well, first off, I wanted to acknowledge that we are all extremely fortunate. Even in this uncertain time, we are still able to pursue what we love doing, be it making art, animation, or games. As many would say, thank God that we are all in the game development industry, having the least negative impact over COVID. But I said, thank you for your courage in pursuing what you love. I can remember 15 years ago, there is no game development opportunity to be found in Malaysia. And what we need to work on is just the local TV commercial, cartoon series, where deadline can be as short as 1 week. Pretty intense, right? And because of that, the art industry is definitely not the most popular choice, and it is not the most promising career path to pursue. Besides that, many people were also frustrated at the condition in Malaysia back then, where art and animation are usually underappreciated, people are working long hours, our elder generation might not be supportive towards our choice in pursuing art, which ultimately discouraging many people to drop out from the industry. And that really concerned and worries our team. And from there, we started to ask ourselves some tough questions. After a bit of finding, we understand the government is using the taxpayers' money to help the industry that will bring continuous opportunity and growth to the country. So it will be benefiting the people again in a healthy cycle. Meaning to make good use of the taxpayers' money, we, the industry, needs to be ready so we can uphold the responsibility of using the taxpayers' money. We need to be ready. The other simple question that we ask ourselves is that, are we entitled for our parents' support or anyone's support? Our simple and honest answer is that we are not. It's not that our parents or friends that love art or game. We do. So we should take up the ownership to pursue what we love, not defeated by any external reason or blockers. And by doing so, Passion Republic has been able to overcome many challenges throughout the past 10 years. Today, I believe we have a better development landscape with the determination of the industry players, the support of our educators and our government body MDAC, many great teams such as Sony, Bandai Namco, Larian Studio, Double 11, Codemasters, Streamline Studio, Lemon Sky Studios, and many more are in Malaysia. And as an industry, we are extremely hopeful. But are we now in a greater state I think it really depends on us. In recent times, we have been hearing many graduates asking themselves, are we good enough? Can I find a job? Most of the company are looking for experienced programmers only. Or when I look at the artwork on the internet, I felt depressed and my game sucks. I think game development is a journey of iteration, exploration, and refinement. And it is already an extremely challenging journey by itself. So I wanted to encourage everyone to leave those am I good enough worries, or they only hired senior programmers, external kind of reason, all behind us, taking ownership of your journey and keep moving forward. As you may know, after 10 years of building our own experience and financial saving, our team is also experiencing a good challenging journey now, making our very first original IP, Gigabash. And what I personally appreciate is the team's synergy that we have built along the way. No matter the differences on our ideas and approach, no matter how many times we iterate, the team can always pivot and support each other to improve the game. So besides taking ownership and keep moving forward, one of the most valuable lessons we have learned is that building a great team is just as important as building a great game. And speaking of team, we are also fortunate to have many passionate developers from KDU joining our team, such as Jack, Vikit, Terence, Andrew, Sophie, and also Chanzi. I'm grateful that all the young developers are very collaborative and supportive. Just like today, I'm happy to see Andrew and Sophie sharing their experiences with everyone, and I hope it is helpful. We hope to keep this good vibe going as a community, because essentially, building a great community is also as important as building great games. So I want to wish everyone all the best making games, and we look forward to play the games that you made in the next Jingle Mingle. All the best, and thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you. That concludes our talk. Oh wow! Okay, right on the dot, almost right on the dot.
All right. Okay, thank you so much, Andrew and Sophie, for your insightful and inspiring journey, as well as Mr. Aikshan for the special message. I hope everyone enjoyed the sharing session today and feeling more motivated to face the challenges ahead in order to pursue your passion in the game industry. Taking from some of the advices from our alumni, be confident in what you do, be ambitious, and work hard for it. So do look forward for more Alumni Corner in the future. Thank you all for watching and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you.